I'm saying?
Is there a pen somewhere?
What?
Ah,
I wish I
I
could
have
tell
one in
you.
my car. I'll just go get it.
That's very kind of you. Look at that. Where? Okay. I think we're live. Actually live. I'm so grateful to Hashem. I don't have right now the time to talk about them. But I've just been having like a series of what I refer to as miracles within the realm. Hasidus refers to as miracles within the realm of nature.
Thank you.
You know that on Hanukkah and Purim, we say that there are two types of nisim. There are two types of miracles. Oh, good evening. There are two types of miracles. You know what the two types of miracles are?
No.
Do you know what two types of miracles? You know what two types of miracles are? You know?
No, it's good. Thank you.
Two types of sugay. Two types of miracles.
Two types of miracles.
Gabriel, if you sit over there, I'll see you. Two types of miracles. So you have one. So it's interesting because there's throughout the years, and especially that's especially for just for you. Yashakach. Welcome.
Nice.
I had only a glass of wine, and it's my birthday today.
Wow! Happy birthday!
So I left my wife. She was screaming at me. I cannot see the double lane. And you see me.
Are you okay? You guys are all good?
Easy.
Okay, you're here. You're safe, Baruch Hashem.
Forgive me
So the
Happy birthday.
happy birthday.
Thank you for spending it with us.
Yes, and I was mentioning also earlier the fact that there's a World Series game going on right now, and we're learning Torah.
I'm still Canadian. I forgive the Americans.
And we're learning Torah. I feel like it makes it even more special. So everything, of course, is by divine providence. We always talk about that. And I asked you what there are two different types of miracles. There are two types of miracles. The first type of miracle. So, in other words, when we talk about we bless during Hanukkah and Purim and other times, and we say the words Sha'asan Nisim Lavotenu, that we thank Hashem who has made miracles for our fathers. So the Rebbe gave out throughout the year, the last several years of the Rebbe's physical life, there were many times, even though over all the years, the Rebbe gave out different pamphlets and books and all types of treats to whoever came to him. I remember one time the Rebbe gave out the Tanya book on the day of his birthday, and we were watching it on satellite in the early 80s, and the Rebbe was giving out Tanyas till 7 a.m. The Farbrengen began the night before at 9 p.m. and was giving out Tanyas till 7 a.m. or something like that. People came from all over New York, and then people flew from places, etc. Either way, the teaching that the Rebbe gave out was associated with this idea, and there are two types of miracles. There are the types of miracles that are embodied within nature, and there's the type of miracles that have to break the rules of nature. So I just tell you one that comes to mind lately, I like to see this as a miracle, although some people would laugh at it and say you're just getting lucky. But I actually only came to mind since I read the book about the Baba Sali. The Baba Sali was a great Kabbalist that lived in Israel. He actually considered himself a follower of the Rabbi. He didn't want to be a leader. The Rabbi pushed him to. He wanted, and etc.
He's a Moroccan Jew.
He was a leader of the Sephardic world. He was a miracle worker. So one of the stories in the book that somebody gave me a couple of years ago was that at some point he had to get somewhere. There was no way in the traffic that they get there. And the driver is telling over the story. He says, "I'm just telling you. The Baba Sali just said, "Sa, just go." He said, and suddenly, like the right lane, it was like, oh, there's traffic in the left 3 lanes, and there's just no traffic in the right lane, and it's going all the way. He says, what it took us 2 hours took us around 30 minutes. He said, but at the same time, it was all just cars just were moving out of the way. You know what I'm saying? And there was no reason for it. And I thought about it this morning. I was taking my kids to school. I was getting a little late, and I was wondering, as I love the idea that I get to thank Hashem for the miraculous replay of that story when I'm driving up with my kids to school. And literally on Pico Boulevard, it gets pretty busy, and they're bumper to bumper on the right lane. I'm going, and that's maybe a simplistic, but that's something that Hashem is showing in nature. Nothing in nature is changing, but it's really working out for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, I have one on our website at dpfrequency.com. One of my websites. You can hashtag in Google DP frequency, and you'll get a lot of different treats over there. And the video that replays all the time over there is an actual video of a person running into the street, falling down in the snow, and milliseconds later, a car comes by that would 100% would have hit the person, but because he fell down. So is that a miracle? Of course it's a miracle. But nothing had to change within the teva, within the nature that Hashem creates the world. So it's still within that realm. Now those miracles are happening all the time, and I'm going to tell you that I learned this in Chassidus, and I see it in experience in my life. The more you are in tune with it, the more you believe it, the more you trust it, the more you're going to see it. Mamash, you're going to see it in so many different ways. Even coming down to parking spaces. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's funny because I was with my wife just recently. We were in some place we had to park. You know how you go up the parking space all full? So you go up and up and up. I always, after the first level, I go down. I'm sure Yossi does something like that too. I go down because I figured maybe there's a parking space that nobody thought about because it's going to be full, you know? And I have a rule. If I'm on the way to do a favor for somebody else or a mitzvah, then I'll try that. If not, I don't try because I don't deserve it. But I can't tell you, if I'm on the way to do a mitzvah, I can't tell you how often the impossible kind of opens up. I'm just telling you, it's my pencil. You know, it sounds humorous, and it is. It's kind of joyous humorous. But then there's miracles where Hashem breaks the nature of things. Where a person one day has an X-ray with something on it, and then they go back to the doctor after getting a bracha, after saying Tehillim, and it's not there anymore. So that's what's referred to as a ness that breaks nature. But then there's a next level. There's something called nifla in Hebrew. Nifla. What's a pella? What's a pella? It's a wonder. What's the difference between a miracle and a wonder? You know, Gabi? Did you ever have a wonder happen in your life?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You know what's a wonder? What's the difference between a miraculous event and a wondrous event?
It all depends how you define it.
Well, that's what I'm asking. In Hebrew, you have two separate words, nisim and niflaot. We give thanks to Hashem for the nisim that Hashem does and for the niflaot. So they're two separate things. Otherwise, it would be one word. You know the difference? Nisim are imaginable. And nifla is also a miracle. But a nifla is it's unimaginable. That's the difference. Like Kriyat Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea is a nifla. It's an unimaginable.
Mm-hmm.
And when I pray for people, I pray to Hashem, please give them this thing and niflaot. Like, I don't want to limit my prayer to something that is, you know.
You know, there's tremendous complexity to interpretations. It all depends on the premise that you start from.
Well, that's I'm saying. That's why I went back.
To define.
I'm saying that's why I went back to the Hebrew word, because you're right. I don't know what wonder means. I don't know how it's used properly in its most proper way. But I do know in the Hebrew word, the word pella, which we translate as wonder, it means something that's mysterious. The way you define it, it's related to that which you don't even know that you don't know. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
And when we look through the journey of the Jewish people, there are both of these types of all three types of these type of miracles that are happening in our journey all of the time. Sometimes, like again, when you look at the history of Eretz Israel, you look at the success of what happened with the Jewish people against their enemies. So I'm just saying this. You look at the stories that have been going on. If you look for them, there's unbelievable stories that are being told over by soldiers in the IDF that are wondrous. They're Pella. People who I heard one. I don't know details enough to relate, but there were two separate units that were at distance from each other that had a precise story that happened. That someone that looked similar came in at a similar time in two separate places, who said, "You got to get out of here now," and they had no clue who the person was, and then the plane flew up afterwards. That would be a wondrous event. Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet showing up, that's a wonder, because it's you know what I mean. So even a miracle is imaginable. A miracle, a person goes to the doctor, taking it, and. So I'm just trying my best, but these are defined, and I'll tell you the importance of it, because the letter Aleph, which we're going to talk about in a moment, the letter Aleph, if you spell it in Hebrew backwards, actually, you know what Aleph means? Do you know what Aleph means?
The first one.
No, what does it actually mean? The word Aleph. Aleph means I will teach you. Aleph chachma, I will teach you chachma, I will teach you wisdom. Meaning, it's the transition from the unknowable to the knowable. So it makes sense being the first of the letters of the alphabet.
But you see, Levi,
I'm just telling you from these. I'm sharing you from the teachings of
Torah.
Torah.
Study the Kabbalah, which is very unique by itself. By itself, it's a revolution that I don't hear anybody talk about it.
We are.
No. Is the beautiful power of interpretation. And interpretation is what leads to the creation of interaction. What I mean by that, which is unique to the biblical studies, it's only when you question that your brain will be open up to understanding what it is.
Yes, that's actually.
In other words, if you accept that God is God and God is one, then it becomes your duty to question everything.
No,
Do you know why?
But Gabriel.
Do you know why? Which is very unique, very revolutionary to any other religion in the world, because only by questioning God's creation that it will lead you to wonder about its power.
Okay, that's not. I'm teaching a class now. Gabriel, nothing personal. I'm teaching a class now. We're not having it.
Actually, I was going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So there's one kind of miracle that's embodied in nature. There's one kind of miracle that breaks the laws of nature.
Yeah.
And then you have to go, what's the difference between a miracle and wonder? And a miracle is imaginable. You could imagine it, but
Correct.
But wonder, like what just happened, like
Correct.
it's unimaginable.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's a distinction.
Yeah.
I love to talk with you. We're learning a class with this.
I'm just bringing something to you.
No, but this we know, we learn this. A lot of people was complaining before we learned about it.
So now we're going back to our subject. I want to tell you something. I've been through 30 years of learning, and I went through different periods of time. Mm-hmm. And I came to clarity that when we're learning a class about a subject, we stick to the subject, and then I have time to talk about other things, because otherwise we never end up getting, the content of what it is that we came for. And then I let people down because I told them I'm going to talk about this, and we talk about something else. You know what I'm saying?
But this was
nothing
great.
personal.
This was great that you taught us this.
Yes. Well, this is going to come in also to our class, which is a part of our class.
But
which
you know,
is
Levi, what fascinates me, that Einstein is the biggest brain that could ever exist. By him bringing up stuff that was revealed to him, it's incredible that himself.
that I heard one of the great tzaddikim said that there were many Einsteins in the walls of the yeshivot that were
Yes.
never discovered in the
I am
outer
sure.
world.
Agreed.
Let's get back to our subject matter. So the very beginning of this parsha
Levi,
begins.
I forgive you, no problem.
I love you. Nothing personal. By the way, many years ago, Yassi Bugan inspired. You know, we have blessings that we say every day, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I shouldn't say this. It's not fair. But we kid around with each other, so he knows I'm joking. But he inspired me to a blessing. It says, "Blessed are you, Hashem, for not making me his wife."
Right.
Levi, we love you no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're telling us
Anyway,
about
so here we go. So Avraham is in the post-flood world. Noah, and we went through that. What they went through because of their complete downfall in their being connected to the reason why Hashem created human beings. And then after the flood, there was a Tower of Babel, which we didn't really get into, but it was the next injection of negativity that was the attempt of human beings to separate themselves from the relationship with God. They didn't really talk about God, but they knew that there were. Here's what they knew. I'm not going to get into that, but the bottom line is there's after the flood, the negativity didn't leave this world. It just became balanced again to some degree. So naturally, negativity has its a force, and there were people that they went in the wrong direction. Fast forward to Abraham. Abraham is the first that discovers Hashem, and he becomes the father of what we call the father of monotheism in all the monotheistic religions. Abraham. It's funny lately to hear in the Abraham records that the president is making an attempt to say Abraham. Kind of find it funny, but either way. The interesting about Abraham is that even when the Torah begins his story in this week's Torah portion, the Torah begins it at the age of when Abraham is 75 years old. Let me just tell you what happened before he was 75. There are different opinions about some of the details of this, but just as a general, okay? When Abraham was 3 years old, and in those days people matured at a much younger age, Abraham, through his questioning, his multiple questioning, came to the conclusion that everything that people were talking about, who's in charge of the universe, is a Baba's Maisa. You know what a Baba's Maisa is? It's Yiddish. It's a grandma's tale. He laughed as they were serving idol worship. They were serving the sun, the moon, the galaxies. Abraham realized it was shtuyot, it was stupidity. The Torah doesn't talk about that in the 5 books of Moses. We know about that from the Medrash, from that which was given down. Abraham actually was a true martyr. When he stood up for his beliefs, the king, the powerful Nimrod, threw him into a furnace of fire. It's actually part of our prayer book every day. Okay? He threw him, and miraculously, he was taken out of the furnace of fire. Torah doesn't say anything about that. There were many incidences where there was divine intervention, angels talking to Avram. Torah says nothing about it. Only when Avram turns 75, suddenly the Torah opens up and says, Hashem said to Avram, Lech Lecho Go, me'artzacha, from your land, u'mimoladetecha, and from the place of your birth, u'mebeis avicha, and from the house of your father, El ha'aretz asher ar'eka, to the land that I will show you. So the first communication that is written in the Torah between Avram and Hashem is this week's Torah portion. But of course, it raises the question: what happened to the first stories? Now, of course, we know the Torah is not a storybook. It's not here to tell us history. It does impart history, but that's not the primary focus of the 5 books of Moses.
The Torah this is what amazes me. It's not a story.
Torah means lesson.
No,
Torah means lesson.
the Torah, but itself, is a very powerful tool of interpretation. If it weren't, how come we have a guy like Rashi and scholars to give us the insight of what is?
We're all fans. We're all fans.
What amazes me, really, when I read, I don't speak Hebrew, but I read Hebrew. In the Deuteronomy, it's one of the books which is extremely fascinating
Yes.
of the Bible. I look at it in a different way.
I hear you.
What happened when he was 75 years old?
Thank you for asking that question. Thank you for that. We're gonna use it. You know, they say we're gonna use this phone call for training purposes. Thank you, Gabriel. Anyway, so here's the answer. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. So the answer is that what changed? No, Gabriel. I don't know what Yossi told you what tonight's about. Maybe. I know, but I'm just not right now doing it that way. I'm sharing for you, doing it a little bit different.
No, but I have to give you only one point.
That's
Which really impressed me over the Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
When they say what we see, actually we don't know it's real. And that by itself, it's a phenomenon.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
It is.
That's what he said when he was 75.
75 is right. That's
75.
we're right back to it. So what happens is, over here, is the first time up until now, up until Avram was 75, everything that he did, and I want to just expand a little bit about his discovery. Once Avram discovered that there's one force bringing it onto being, it wasn't just like, it wasn't just like a wow moment. It was a wow new lifetime, meaning everything therefore was connected. Let me tell you what that means in the most practical of ways. As an example, the Ari HaKadosh, who was a great Kabbalist, if you read the accounts of his student, and this is someone who's present in that type of way, the Ari HaKadosh would be so careful with a little fly, not if he can avoid killing a fly. Because when a person is able to be present and everything is divine, it's a whole different reality that a person is living. Having said that, Avraham, by recognizing this, by acknowledging this as an absolute certainty and a truth, without reciprocal anything yet in his youth coming back from Hashem, he came to that conclusion. This is just the right way. This is what's right. He was 100% certain. At some point, angels began to visit him, but there was no instruction that was particularly given to him. But then Hashem now appears to him. And it's the very first time that he gets a command. He's given an instruction. He's giving a mitzvah. Do you know what mitzvah means? The word mitzvah. Mitzvah has several different translations to it. Mitzvah literally means command, but it also means from the lashon of tzavta, the chibur, connection. Simply put, when you ask someone to do something for you, and that someone does something for you, a connection occurs. I heard a interesting quote recently from one of our great Americans, Benjamin Franklin, that if somebody is inclined to give for a cause even something a little bit, then eventually they'll be inclined to do more for it. Yeah. And when I was listening to it, I'm thinking it's a very Kabbalistic idea, because the idea is once a connection is made, there's a thread that's happening. You know what I'm saying? That is also, by the way, true if you look in the opposite direction also. And the opposite, when a person goes off of their path that they're onto, say, just a little bit, that becomes the opening to, that's the first chapter of Tehillim. Either way, so now, it's a very interesting thing, because there's a question in the Talmud. The question in the Talmud is, speaking of the Talmud, the question of the Talmud is, what is superior? Someone who's commanded to do something and does it, or someone who does it even though they're not commanded? You would think even though they're not commanded, they do it anyway. That's a bigger deal, right?
That's not.
What say you?
I agree.
You're inclined to say the opposite of logic because you know that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's the deal. In truth, as human beings back and forth, the way we behave to each other, of course, if someone's going to do something nice to you, there's something nice about them doing it without you having to ask them. Okay, but there's a difference when it comes to our relationship with Hashem. Because we're finite beings, so anything will muster up in our hearts. If it's clearly and purely only coming from there, we're still finite beings. So there's only so much of a deal that occurs in it. But since in a mitzvah there's a command from the maker of the world that says, I want you to do it this way. I want you to light Shabbat candles. I want you to put on tefillin. So then when you fulfill that mitzvah, there's a bond that's made to the source never compared to that you create on your own. Because you're a finite being. And as a finite being, there's only so much that you can muster up on that. You get what I'm saying? So in the mitzvah thing, in the mitzvah, there's an actual connection in the mitzvah that only could happen because there is a command. And that's why the answer is there's something greater about a person being commanded to do something than someone that does it even though they're not commanded. Which, by the way, is brought up in the Talmud about, let's say, people sometimes there's some mitzvahs that non-Jewish people do, but they're not commanded to do. Some mitzvahs are not supposed to do, but there's some mitzvahs that they do and they're not commanded to do. It's a beautiful thing.
All right.
But the only thing is that there are mitzvahs that everybody can do. But the point is that because what happens is since our source is beyond anything that we can possibly describe, even using the word infinite is a reduction in its truth. And because that's still a limitation of our words. So that truth has imparted to us, do this. The Torah says, command the Jewish people to do this. Eat matzah and Passover. Keep the Sabbath. Eat kosher. So every time we are performing a mitzvah,
and
there's a connection taking place.
Yeah, and when someone asks you for something, they're doing a mitzvah. They're
meaning the word mitzvah it literally means to command.
Right.
So, for example, when you're asking someone to do something for you and they respond to it, there's a certain connection that takes place that, in a certain sense, is superior, and that they do it when you didn't ask.
It's fascinating
because it's an essential response to who you are. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's what I mean. But between two people, it's still within a lower limitation, and maybe over there it works the opposite also.
But if somebody's asking you for something, then you're getting a mitzvah for doing what they wanted, and they're getting a mitzvah for giving you an opportunity to get a mitzvah.
Correct. But over here, I'm just focusing because it's important for our conversation on this one unique detail. Because up until Hashem gives the Torah to the Jewish people, there is no mitzvah yet for real. Now, are the 7 laws of Noah? They're all don'ts. They're all don'ts. Right? Don't steal. Don't murder. Even setting up the courts. But they don't have the embodiment of what I'm telling you what a mitzvah is. A mitzvah, a command, is an instruction that's coming from the source and is giving us a guidance to do something. And just by the very fact that we're responding, yes, I'm going to do it, it's like we're putting up a mirror to that light. You know what I'm saying? And it's not our light. It's a light that's much bigger than us. And now, coming back to Abraham, all the great stuff that he did until he was 75 years old was great. But because he's going to be the embodiment of what it means to be a Jew, then his story in the Torah had to begin with a mitzvah. And the first mitzvah is in this week's parsha. when Hashem instructs them to do something. Because up until now, there were no instructions. Do you get what I'm saying?
What?
Rashi.
What?
Rashi. I'm sorry, Levi.
He has a question.
When you have the two people, you go to the mitzvah.
Of course you are. The Torah instructs us to
But
do
you
it.
say you won't have it.
Hashem told you to do so.
Hashem, your
Hashem-
mind told you to do that, but
No,
you're not
I
letting you do it.
understand. But I'm saying, but the fact, I'm saying, the
When are
fact,
you going to Hashem?
I'm saying the Torah is 613 mitzvot. 248 commands. Do this, do that. One of them is give charity. So every time you give charity, you are making a connection between you and Hashem because you're responding.
Okay.
You're doing what Hashem ordered you to do. So because you are ordered to do so, and I'm going to give you the flip side to it. King Saul, you know who King Saul was?
Yes.
So you know King Saul, Shaul.
Inshallah.
Do you know his story at all?
No, not that.
Wait, let me see, because he was the son of David.
No, he's
And he
before
killed-
David.
Okay,
He was
so-
The very first king of
he
Israel.
was the king who was extremely jealous of David.
David.
Later, well, that's one part of his life, but he was a great king.
He had a story with the Amalek.
But the story, but the point that I'm getting, I don't want to go ADD over here. I'm going back to Shaul, that Shaul, when he was commanded by the prophet Shemuel to take out Amalek, everything, and he instead had a good idea.
And he disobeyed.
But he wasn't just a disobedience. He did it with a good intention. He wanted to bring the animals instead of just killing them, to bring them for an offering. And to that, Shemuel the prophet said, better to listen to the word of Hashem than all of your sacrifices. So the essential meditation in a mitzvah really is, because Hashem commanded, I do it. Of course, there are layers to every mitzvah in meditation. In Shema, we think about the oneness of Hashem. In the eating of mitzvah, of the matzah and everything else, you have it. But the underlying commonality of all mitzvot is because Hashem said to do it, and just because we respond, we create a connection to something that we would be incapable of making if we were not commanded. Because coming from below, it's not possible to engage and to initiate on our own something that would engage in a reciprocal truth that's beyond the scope of our minds. But because the mitzvot come from the essence of Hashem through the Torah, so every time you do a mitzvah, you're creating a conduit, a nuclear conduit, just because you're doing the mitzvah. So now that's number one. The next thing is, what is the mitzvah Hashem tells to Avram? He says, Lech Lecho Go. From where? He says, from your land and from your birthplace and from the house of your father. A lot of information. In fact, when you look at the Talmud, it tells us how careful the Torah is with every letter. Why are all those details important?
But the symbolism of it is that God has punished Saul for disobeying him, for not destroying all the Amalek.
We moved on from that. We're back to Abraham. I'm back in Abraham.
We're not showing up.
I fast forward me. Put me on 2x.
No problem.
Okay. So I want to tell you that this is a very important teaching, and you should know that this teaching that I'm about to share with you is one of the early Hasidic teachings, and the words, like in every other story, this is in the Brown Book. You can read it in the inner dimension, and the word Avram, if you broke it into two words, you have the word Av, which means father, and Ram, which means like high up there. Okay?
Which means
Later, well, we're going to get to that right now. So, and the thing is that later on he gets the hay of Avraham, But right now it's Avram. So now let me share with you, okay? Metaphorically, this command is a given to every soul about to be born, which must then descend from its source in the heavenly spheres through progressively lower gradations, gaining more definition, self-awareness, and distance from Hashem's light at each step, until it reaches a physical plane. And the next step is to begin the process of ascent, traveling back in the opposite direction to transcend the short-sighted perspective of the body. Finally, it must then transcend even its own holy inclinations. This verse can thus be explained as follows, okay? So actually, I went straight into the deep end. I didn't intend to do that. I meant to go to the shallow, more or less deep first, okay? They're both very deep. But I meant to do it. This is okay? So this is the I'm going straight into the so Lech Lecho literally means go to yourself, okay? So this is a instruction and a instruction and guidance to every one of us. Lech Lecho, return to your inner core. So the command that Avram is being given is to go into a new level, which is also for every Yid going forward. From your land, that is by transcending your earthly desires. The word Eretz in Hebrew, land, has the same root as ratzon, will, desire. So over here, in this verse, Hashem is giving us the instruction of what it means to live as a Jew. Number one is to transcend your earthly desires. Go further, and from your birthplace, by overcoming your natural habits and inclinations. So birthplace over here is a code word. Every one of us is brought into this world with a certain characteristic. And those characteristics are primal, animalistic, etc. But to be a Jew and to be in service of Hashem means to acknowledge what they are, and those places that need to be transcended, we go from your father's house by transcending the intellectual limitations of your animating soul. Since intellect fathers ideas and eventually emotions as well. So again, the word father in Hebrew is also Kabbalistically associated with the first of the Sefirot, Chachma, which is intelligence. And again, the next instruction, we all develop a story that comes into our mind that is what drives us and is behind the decisions that we make instinctively throughout, But to be journeying as a Jew means you got to go outside of your own mind. You can't, just because that's the way you always think, doesn't mean that's the way that it is, Okay. And the land of, and then where is Hashem telling? He says, Asher Areka, to the place that I'm going to show you. He doesn't tell him where you're going. He tells him to the place that where I'm going to show you, which in a certain sense is beckoning him to have trust, have faith in Hashem. Another part of the journey. So on that level, that aspect of it all, is the instruction that's given in the beginning of the Torah, and it's the first mitzvah that's given to Avram, but it's also the instruction that's given to every one of us. And the instruction is that the way that we journey in this life to be better and more closer to Hashem is we have to go outside of our own desires, and we have to go outside of, there's a story in the first Chabad Rebbe. He had different characters, Hasidim, that behaved, there was a whole new movement, And this one fellow, his name was Shmuel Munkis, who was a very funny guy. There's a lot of stories about him. And there's one story about him that one time during Kiddush on Shabbat, they were about to bring out the cholent, the kishka, and all the people were running, to go. And he went and he picked up the tray, which that's like the favorite part of the cholent. And they started to dance around the tables with the tray, and the people are like screaming at him, "What are you doing? It's going to fall down!" And then he took the whole tray and he dumped it into the garbage. It wasn't edible anymore. And now they were like, now they're really upset at him, right? And literally within minutes of all the balagan, the sheikhet, the ritual slaughter from the next village over, came in schwitzing. And he was like, please tell me you didn't eat the meat, etc. And he said that he realized that there was a horrible mistake in those days. The non-kosher and kosher were done close to each other. But of course, they were God-fearing people, and they did everything they had to make sure that's going to all be good, 100% kosher. But the bottom line is that it didn't work out, and something happened, and he realized it. So he came running, and now the Hasidim like, how did you know? How did you know? They asked him, how did you know that it wasn't kosher? How did you know? What are you, a prophet? Do you have like divine inspiration? How did you know? So he said, I was so shocked to see that there was like a primal animalistic like desire for everyone to have this food. So these are people who are refined people. They study Torah, they're praying. So something about it didn't smell right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now I'm just saying.
It was the smell that gave it.
No, it was his observation of the.
But the smell made the other people animalistic.
Correct. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, the smell made
That's
the
the
other
point.
people animalistic.
I'm saying that's exactly what it was.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? But the fact that he picked up on that, right? So the reality is that the Hashem puts us into a body that's wired to have desires that are outside of the alignment of what Hashem wants in the world, and that's just the way that it is. It's important, by the way, because the eventuality of it is when the two sides within work as one. You know, is when the force that otherwise was driven to fulfill every kind of desire in the physical material is now replaced. Not replaced. It's refocused. So that type of energy doesn't happen in a soul without a body. So only in this friction does that possibility occur. So, but we're at the same time, there's a journey that we have to do. So Hashem is telling him that, you know, in order to, so in other words, every step until now, Abraham came on his own. He became aware of Hashem. He started to follow Hashem, and you know, it was, you know, if you again, we know Abraham and Sarah were both very well known for their chesed, for their kindness. In fact, one of the things that is still present in the Arab world attributed to Abraham is how they treat guests, you know, and all that, right? They're very big on that. So it's all coming from Abraham. But the original inspiration that came to Abraham from that was just by his observation. Number one, that there's a force that we call God, that is the one force in the world, and that's so kind. So if that's kind, we should be kind too. That was like the natural observation that he had. That was his awareness. It wasn't, but it was still, it was all initiated from here. So a Jew, even when we're kind, and even when we feel good to be kind, we have to remind ourselves the biggest part of being kind is because Hashem told us we got to be kind. You get what I'm saying? And the good thing about that is, when the day comes, you're not in the mood of being kind. You know what I'm saying? Then you remember it's not because of your moods that you're kind, but because you're on a mission. And actually, sometimes by fulfilling that mission when you're not in the mood of it, is when the bigger miracle shows up, if you will. Get what I'm saying? When you're not in the mood. So it's really going out now. This is what the Holy Baal Shem Tov says. Go outside of Lech Lecho Go, go outside. You have to break the nature in which you have come here with. So, again, this is something that I know that in the later years of Hasidim, they don't talk about this in the yeshiva as much as they once upon a time did. But it's a big deal that the way that a person breaks their nature is that when you want something, you don't give it to yourself. You get what I'm saying? Or when you don't want to do something, then you force yourself. Like you don't let that animalistic primal be the runner of the show, that little doggy inside. You know what I'm saying? He cannot be running the show. So he says, what does that mean? Basically, it means that you go out of the house of your father. Like you said, the father is chachma. The house of your father is bina, which means the way that Not just the wisdom, but the way that your whole thinking pattern. You got to let it go. You got to change the way that you have the narrative running in the head. What's the underlying intention? To correct any negative thoughts. That's number one. To correct negative thoughts. They don't belong to be entertained in our mind. And this is what it means from the house of your father. That it means that by being able to realize the areas where your mind had led you to your own imprisonment, to be able to that what? And then as a result of this is what he's saying. As a result, when we do this, when we overcome our nature, then Hashem says, Baal Shem Tov says, this is what the end of the pasuk says. Through this, you're going to merit to go to the land that I'm going to show you. Means you're going to go to the higher land. That's which I can't describe to you. I'll only be able to share with you and share with you. And here's what the Baal Shem Tov finishes what that means. He says, if you do it this way, if you break your first nature, then Hashem says, I'm going to show you your real nature, your higher nature. You get that? So in other words, we gravitate towards our nature because it feels what's right for us. But he's saying in the areas that are not good areas that they need to be broken, we gotta break them. That's part of our job. But here's the good part that comes afterwards. By us doing so, we invite the next level of our nature that we're not even aware of. It's called our higher nature because we haven't yet given it the proper space. You get what I'm saying? So in other words, that if you look at people who really gone through the journey of teshuvah, you'll see that there are certain times that there are certain things in life that they were providing them the abundance of their pleasure. But over time, they look back in life, in a later time in life, and it's amazing how those things would have been meaningless to them at this time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in order for them to be able to, for anyone to reach the higher form of pleasure, the higher, or actually in the Baal Shem Tov's words, to reach your higher nature, you have to let go of your lower nature. Does that make sense? You get that?
So why are we always tested for our behavior?
Because when you get tested, something beautiful emerges that would not have occurred if you didn't get tested.
Like in the case of Noah.
Yes.
Why are we being tested for our actions when God is our creator?
Yeah.
He's the one who gives us life.
Yeah.
Give us meaning to every day.
And he gives us choice.
But why are we if you have Adam and Eve and the action was not the apple, the punishment was that the wife made him drunk with wine for him to disobey the commandment of God. How are we punishing this couple, Adam and Eve, for the actions? Is like condemning children who don't know what is right from wrong.
You know, when we go back to
it's very puzzling to me. It's very puzzling. It has to have a meaning.
It does.
Why are we subjected to punishment? Is like taking a child today in the law of Torah, which was taken from the Bible, which is applicable to the Roman law. If a child cannot be judged if he's a minor, Adam and Eve, they were minors. Why are we subjecting them to a punishment for disobedience when themselves they don't know what is right and what is wrong?
I'm going to tell you the answers I've given over the years. Ready?
Sure.
As a rabbi working for Hashem, it's true people come and ask me questions about, but they forget that I work in the PR department, not in management. And you're asking a question about management. So I want to give you the email.
I understand, but the truth.
No, but you want to hear the answer? I'm going to tell you the answer. The the way you just asked the question is not correct.
No.
Many of the details that you mentioned are incorrect. But the bottom line, which if I understood and understand your question correctly, we are in a project of Hashem. And that project has been put into place by the deficiencies of the first of the humanoids that were here. And the way that it happened is much more complex than the way that you share it or tell it.
I understand.
And you can't use the word punishment so freely as you do.
Maybe what's revolutionary about the Jewish religion or about the Kabbalah itself, which was unique, that it is your duty as a Jew to question everything.
I agree, but at the same time, just so you know, you don't believe that question has been asked 1 billion times?
No.
And in this book, it addresses it. This actual book addresses it.
I'm not worried about 1 billion times. I accept the premise, which is revolutionary for the Jewish religion, that surpass any religion. By it is your duty to question everything.
Of course, but there's a time and space. There's a time and space for every question.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Levy, Rabbi Levy.
Yeah.
Judaism is not a religion.
No, it's a way of life.
That's what I was just gonna
Correct.
ask you, because that's what I've been taught.
It's a way of life, and